Monday, live streaming. We're going casual. Casual, flying casual, all the casuals we can do. Hey everyone, this is the Rebel Scum podcast. I'm James. We got a big show today. Joining me top left is Scotty Hawkish over on the YouTubes. Follow him if you're not subscribed to that channel. You got to subscribe there. Scotty, what's up?
Not much, man. Chilling, getting the GTA action on. I'm actually doing some Fortnite with some boomers. We're doing some dad gaming tonight against all the kids. It's a school night. It's a school night, so we might be in luck. They might be all in bed by the time I start.
You might stand a chance. Below him is first time on the show. It's Skywalker. Dale Skywalker. Dale, what's up?
Just ceilings, helicopters, and you know what?
They're not the blue sky. It's dark where I am. I don't know about you guys. And above me right here is executive producer Heidi Feder. Heidi, you ready to talk some Star Wars?
Always.
And we'll plug your books at the end of the show, but she's an author, so whatever she says, she could probably write better than you. All right, let's get right to a big day in Star Wars today. Has anything happened? Have you guys seen anything in Star Wars land that's caught your attention in the last week since we last spoke? Because there hasn't been. It feels like it's been a little quiet. Hey KG, how's it going? It feels like it's been quiet in Star Wars land. Has it just been me, or are they keeping hush hush right now?
A lot of people still talking
About the Acolyte, believe it or not, but
yeah.
I think it's been pretty quiet other than that, and which I think is a good thing leading up to Skeleton Crew.
I do want to say this about the Acolyte, and we'll see what you guys say about it. Dale, I haven't heard your opinions on it if you want to share them in a bit, but they had Dragon Con a few days ago, and there was a panel, and on the panel was Sabine, was Danny Trejo Rancor Wrangler, and Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, and Manny Jacinto was on that panel. Those were the four. And I find it weird because Manny Jacinto was also at D23 pumping up Acolyte, and it got canceled like a day later. But he still seems, I think, he still seems to be the one they seem to be pushing from that show. And I think all of us kind of agree that he was a great part of that show. And I mean, I find it curious that a show that got canceled, they keep kind of pulling him into the fray. They want him in front of the cameras. They want him talking about Star Wars still. And I'm all in. Give me more Stranger, you know?
Definitely. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I hope that means that they're going to do something with him. He seems to have a lot of fan base, even by the people who hated the show. So I think that's the biggest complaint, is they would like a show around him.
This was an appearance at what event?
Dragon Con.
Comic-Con. Yeah, so,
yeah.
I mean, do they want him to be like still promoting the show? I'm not so sure about that, but like as far as Comic-Cons, that's just like these actors are getting paid to make these appearances.
Oh, yeah.
His show just got canceled, so he's gonna go, I mean, he was one of the best parts of the show. I think a lot of people, even the people who didn't like the show, can agree that you would want to see more of that character if it was written, to your liking, I guess.
Yeah.
Dale, any thoughts on that?
I think Manny should come back. The power of Manny shall return.
The power of Manny. That's what the next show should just be called. The power of Manny. I thought he was great. I've said this. I don't want to kick it like a dead horse, but it wasn't my favorite show. I wasn't all in on the Acolyte. There were parts of it that I thought were great, and I thought when he got to be the Stranger, I thought the show really elevated itself, and I thought it was great. I thought he was great, and I've always said that I wish the show was about that. I wish we got more of that in it. So I'm down for whatever. I think you have to somehow separate him from the name Acolyte and the show Acolyte for a lot of people. But I think if they really wanted to, they could find a way to make that happen. And whether or not it's adapting the Plagueis novel and reworking it so that he's a character in it, I don't know.
If they take Osha and May and kind of make a little backstory about Vernestra finding out what Osha knows, and then maybe Vernestra or Vernestra and May. I get them confused. So you'll just have to keep that straight in your own head, which one's which, because the same character was played by both characters were played by the same actress. So them just basically, Plagueis finds out that she was created through the planet. What do you call it? Nexus? Not Nexus. What's the other word for
Virgins.
it?
The Virgins. Yeah.
Yeah, the Virgins on the planet. And then he basically kills off, or not really kills her, but just puts her under and starts experimenting on her. And then
Heidi, we talked about this last week. Let's pull back.
I was gonna say that's a different kind of show, I think.
No,
Dan the Man, what up?
I mean, come on. Hey, Dan the Man.
Yeah, the man's in. Look, the chat is. Are we getting into the Talon and Maul of it all? The Talon and Maul.
Talon and Maul.
Was that in some of the George Lucas stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
we will
Yeah,
definitely talk.
Talon. Yeah, Talon was.
Heidi knows George Lucas.
Yeah, personally.
She
has conversations with him and Filoni on the ranch every week.
Yeah, she goes down. They share a coffee. I don't know if any of them drink coffee. I imagine Lucas doesn't, and he's always in possession of a Diet Coke. Always. Doesn't matter what time of day or where he is. He's like, it's Diet Coke time. It's like, George, we're in Alaska in mid-February. He's like, Diet Coke me. Warm it up. Let's go. Yeah, we're going to talk about the sequels, the George Lucas sequels. Yeah, Heidi.
I was just going to say, I mean, I see someone online was talking about how they wish the Acolyte had been about Chimere being a Padawan and being turned to the dark side and his journey with the Sith, and that they wish he was the Acolyte instead of the twins. But what Desi talked about yesterday, I think the twins were a lot more interesting. They just didn't put it out there about how they weren't as powerful as Anakin because they actually got split in two. I mean, basically, it was like Twins, the movie, where one got all the good attributes and the other one got all the bad attributes. But I guess Osha was Arnold Schwarzenegger and May was Danny DeVito. I'm not sure, but
I think we did talk about that a little bit last week, where somebody brought that up, and I said, "Well, what? Like there are things like that are in the show that aren't in the show." And to me, it makes it so much more intriguing and interesting. Like that's like, give me that information when I'm watching the show. Don't have me read it in an EW magazine article 2 months after it's finished. You know, like why don't you put that in there? And that's frustrating. It's frustrating when they do stuff like that. When it's like you could tell, as much as I thought the show didn't execute very well, you could tell there were ideas. There were ideas in place that just kind of, for me, fizzled, and I wish they stuck it more.
I mean, if you're doing something, I think I discussed this with Andrew. Don't save it for season 2, because you don't know there's going to be season 2. Just you have information, get it out. Worry about season 2 if you know for sure there's going to be season 2, because they left a bunch of stuff for season 2, and now we're not going to see it because there is no season 2.
Exactly. You can't like these shows. You know, the one thing I always bring up is A New Hope. This movie called A New Hope. Don't know if any of you are familiar with it. When it came out, it was called Star Wars. Yeah, it's a little movie. It's an independent film. It was called Star Wars. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if they never made a sequel to it, we would all be okay with it. It would kind of be a movie that we're like, oh, yeah, remember that movie that we saw? I mean, they made Splinters of the Mind's Eye. I know that. But like, it's not a movie that needs a sequel. It's a movie that's better with a sequel, I'd argue. And the sequel is phenomenal. But it doesn't need it. I think they need to approach a lot of these shows the same way, where it's like, unless you're The Mandalorian season 2, you don't know if you're getting another season. Right? Like even Mandalorian season 1, you didn't know what was happening after that. Mandalorian season 2, I think we could all agree that we all knew a third season was coming for that show because it was such a big hit. They can't go into these shows thinking that they're going to go into season 2 and season 3, and then in the interviews afterwards where we get all the information, they're always like, if we're lucky enough to get a second season, it's like, are you petitioning us right now? Like, are you trying to get us to beg you for a second season, and you're going to make us watch it so we get answers for the first season? Tell a complete story the first time, leave a little nuggets, and finish those off next year. But I'm with you. Like, don't worry about your season 2 until you figured out your season 1.
But I would even argue that season 2 of Mandalorian was a fake series finale.
100% agree. I think you guys all know my stance is that the Mando and Grogu's story kind of ended with that finale, and then everything we get after that is like a side, whatever their next adventure is, but their main story ended there. I don't know. What do you think, Scotty and Dale? Scotty, I'll start with you.
I think you're forgetting one thing. Like, what are they going to write comics about? If all of these shows have a beginning, middle, and an end, what are they going to write the comics about?
Damn it, you got me.
No, I'm just saying, like, I feel like a lot of times they're not even petitioning, like they're petitioning us to voice how much we like it so that the studio heads hear what we're saying, because a lot of times they actually don't know if they're gonna get a second season. I think everybody like kind of went into the Acolyte very hyped, already assuming that like we were gonna get the green light, like the Rian Johnson trilogy. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Avoid doing that again. Probably a good idea, because the third strike is like, it's getting out of hand now.
It's really getting out of hand.
I've been overhyped about a lot of things, and I try to enjoy most of it. But when like I said, when the shows just have a dead end plot point that now we're not going to get anything more of, it's a big turn off for a lot of people.
Dale, right before I get to you, I just want to say you brought up something there, Scotty. Is that we're also like, so many fans are so excited, and then it's like they rip the carpet out from under us. Like, you have us, you have our money, you have our time. Just follow through with it. Just follow through with it, and you know, it's not. I mean, it's probably easier said than done, but I don't think it is, because there've been a lot of successful Star Wars movies. So just make it, and we're going to be there. Dale, how about you?
I always thought that the Star Wars was the only movie that got better with the sequel. I don't remember who wrote the Empire Strikes Back and all that stuff, because that's not on my brain right now, but George basically didn't write it. And I think that's what's
Kasdan.
Yeah.
Lawrence Kasdan.
And then he worked with Lawrence on the sequels, but I think George was really headstrong on the Maul idea, Maul coming back again, and all that. And I don't think Lawrence agreed with it, but he went with it.
Yeah, I think that's the way it was with the prequels. Also, the prequels, there was a lot of, he wanted Kasdan, I think, back for the prequels, and Kasdan's like, just do what you want. And he also wanted like Ron Howard to direct Phantom Menace. There's a few names he wanted to direct Phantom Menace, and they all basically said, you're basically the director of this anyway. Why don't you just go ahead and do it? And ultimately he did. And I think for him, that was the best thing possible, because imagine, like, if you got somebody else to direct those, I guarantee you there would have been some fighting involved, and some friendships would have been lost after the prequels for sure.
Yeah. So in this document that I've got up here, it's called the research or all information referencing the content of George Lucas's sequel trilogy treatments. And it's got some quotes in here from Paul Duncan. Lawrence Kasdan was involved in another document that I had access to earlier, and I probably should have pulled that one up and read what he said to Kasdan. But Stephen Colbert with George Lucas, J.J. Abrams with Vanity Fair on questions about George Lucas. There's all kinds of stuff through here. And basically, I think what it started out with is George had Maul and Talon, be it Darth Talon from the comics that nobody knows about, unless you read the comics. He basically pulls on them ruling the galaxy through somehow pulling all of the crime syndicates together, and that's basically what the comics are based on right now. Between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, I believe. I'm not real positive that's where the timeline is, but I think that's it. And then they've got Phil Stozak. I don't know how you pronounce his name real well, but Shostak is how I think it's pronounced. Doug Chang, Michael Arndt. I mean, it goes through all kinds of things. The link is on my, if you want to look at the one with my perspective, or the original is in a link at the top with my perspective, but that's on my YouTube channel right at the top. You can just go to my YouTube channel and look at the whole thing, read through it with us if you want. I'm not sure I'm going to read through it, but there were just, George was in the room when they started adapting his treatments, and when they suggested to take out the Wills and the midichlorians, that whole microbiotic world, he stormed out and they didn't go back. So I think they were going to use it, they just didn't know, they didn't understand it, they didn't know how to work it, and they were asking him questions, and probably somebody just kind of said, well, maybe we should hold off on that. And George got pissed off and said, or got mad and said, I'm out of here. And that's when they decided not to use it at all. And that's when they decided to go with, well, it's probably not really when they decided to go with Plagueis coming, not Plagueis. We got Plagueis on the mind because Sidious, we were talking about the Acolyte, but Sidious comes back into the picture after some time. But we all know that George changed the plans when he wrote the prequels and the originals, and so I just don't. I get what the argument is about, and part of it, a lot of it has to do with the EU. People expect that to come into play here, and it doesn't have anything to do with the EU. The EU story, Luke is all on his own. That's a totally different story, and people are trying to mix that in with the sequels, and that's why they hate them, because they just don't understand that the sequels don't involve EU Luke at all. EU Luke was a fantasy drummed up. I mean, Timothy Zahn pulled Mara Jade. Mara Jade was Luke was never going to get married in George's vision. And so it just creates this whole nightmare of trying to continue Star Wars when the EU, when George let them play with his characters. He should have never let them play with their toys. He should have just kept his toys to himself and let them do their own thing. Don't mess with Luke. Don't mess with Han. Don't mess with Leia. Write your own thing, and it would have been fine. George could have done what he wanted, but because he let him play with his toys, they set everybody's expectations to something totally different he didn't even have in mind. That's what I think.
Yeah, it is true, because there's a lot of stories there that people, and the thing is, like you said, like he let them play with their toys, and people read those books, and they have a spot for them, especially the ones, some people got into Star Wars because of those books, because of the EU books, and that is their Star Wars. They hold that to be their canon. Scotty, how familiar are you? A big EU guy? Did you read a lot of the books? You can be honest. You don't have to make it up.
No, I'm being educated on a lot of it when I talk with you guys. So
you're like, look at all these books behind me.
No, I have my favorites. Like, I definitely know of Darth Talon and stuff like that. So the Darth Maul stuff for me, I think, is the most fascinating, that he wanted to have him as like the villain in the first part of the trilogy and in the end of the trilogy. To have Maul come back. And there's something too I'm reading a Screen Rant article about either a video game, Battle of the Sith Lords, tried to maintain continuity by having a clone of Maul in 130 ABY.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but one of the theories for Attack of the Clones was that there was going to be a Darth Maul clone in it, and he was going to be blue. That was a rumor theory going around. I remember, I believe on the old Force.net forum way back in 2000 2001, 2001, nice. way back then. I believe that was going around. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. It didn't happen. I think Lucas's biggest regret with the prequels is offing Darth Maul. I honestly, like, as time went on, I'm like, I'll bet you of all the things he can go back and change, he wouldn't have him killed off. I think Darth Maul blew up in a way he was hoping, but more than he did. And I think he's the one who brought him back in the Clone Wars, right? Like, he loved Darth Maul and saw potential there. And I think, look, I'm a huge Darth Maul fan, so I would never argue to get more Maul ever. But I mean, yeah, that was the thing with Solo when it ended, and they're like, okay, where are they going? But where are they going with this? The problem, of course, was we already knew that he died in Rebels.
Well, yeah. I didn't get the article that that Dale had. I did read another article, and it was talking about actually The Last Jedi was probably closer to Lucas's vision than any other of his movies, even though that's the one that everyone seems to be the most divisive, because it got into the Syndicate, it got into Luke being a hermit. Someone brought up Darth Talon earlier, and I guess George Lucas kind of had the hots for her or something. I read that a long time ago, that he liked the Twi'leks. But apparently she's the one who corrupts, quote unquote, Kylo Ren or Ben Solo, whatever the character's name would have been. She's the one who turns him to the dark side. But he wasn't supposed to even turn, I guess he wasn't supposed to turn the dark side until episode 8. And then Luke ends up training Leia fully in episode 9, which of course was not going to happen because Carrie Fisher died. But that makes sense about the syndicates and everything, because Last Jedi does explore the syndicates on Canto Bight. Like I said, and I honestly thought that's where this movie was going. And even the throne room scene where Snoke makes Rey and... Well, Snoke doesn't make Rey and Kylo fight, but it's different. But just as... the Emperor, just like Palpatine egged Anakin to fight Count Dooku. Sorry, I was thinking Dracula. Count Dooku, and then Palpatine again tried to get Luke and Vader to fight. It was the same thing with Snoke trying to get Rey and Kylo to fight, although that turned on him in the end. He ended up actually getting killed doing that. But like Lucas says, it's just poetry that keeps on rhyming. And if you look at some of Lucas's original script, it does ironically sound more like The Last Jedi than The Force Awakens.
Something else I'm reading too that would have, I don't know, like fans, every time there's a Jedi that survived Order 66, you hear a big like sigh in the background, and people are like, another one survived. Like Lucas would have had 50 to 100 Jedi that had survived. So he also is quoted as saying there was like 100,000 Jedi Knights at the height of the prequels. So there are some similarities to other stories Disney's trying to write.
It's just funny because all these fans who hate the sequels so much and wish they had George Lucas's vision. I can remember when the prequels came out, people saying, "Oh, George Lucas ruined my childhood." It's like, It's his story. How can you ruin your childhood?
Right.
And I didn't see the Hermit Luke stuff. I thought that George was having him basically rebuild, going back to the old ways, training like the young kids and stuff like that, which they kind of did showcase in the sequels in the comics, the Kylo Ren comics. He's training kids, like little kids, toddlers, I think, almost in some of these scenes.
Right. Well, it's been 20
I want to bring
years,
up this.
So,
Mhm.
Oh,
so
sorry,
a lot
Dale.
of that stuff would have changed. So what he did when he wrote his version was in the 90s, I believe, he wrote Darth Talon and Darth Maul being the big bads, and then he was ready to do it, and then the backlash from the prequels made him not do
What?
it. It would have been perfect timing for them to do what everybody expected Luke to do, sort of, but not really from the EU. But it would have been like your last that last short show you did the other day. It would have been perfect timing for him to do the sequels right after the prequels, or right before him even. I don't. He decided to do the prequels first, so whatever that works out to be, but it would have been the perfect time to do the sequels right after that. He's having heart problems and all that stuff, so he had the story written, and then he had Michael, or was it Michael Arndt?
Yeah.
Had him come in and help him rework it, and I don't think they considered a lot of the things. He just wanted to get it done so that he could sell it along with the company to Disney, and he basically just went through and kept Maul and Darth Talon. He kept, I don't think he really made considerations for the kids' ages. And then the grandchildren was supposed to be where it was going when he was talking about it in the 80s and 90s about making 12 trilogies, and then it changed back to 9. And then after the prequels, he said there's only going to be 6. So, so it affected him. The fans are affecting Star Wars and how it turns out, and
They always have.
mixing expectations with what George wants to tell, and expectations are ruining it, and that's basically what all this whole document comes down to, is that they expected the EU and they got this, and they're mad. So
I think I have to ask you guys a question. Scotty, I'll start with you, then Heidi, then Dale. The Last Jedi, because of where it goes with DJ and all of that, how would you think it would have gone over? You have the exact same movie, right? Exact same Luke Skywalker, beginning to end, exact same Ben, exact same Rey, but you throw in more about the DJ character, and you find out who he's just talking about is Darth Maul. And Darth Maul gets thrown into the mix. And we could either say he's only mentioned, which would lead the way to him being the big bad in the third movie of that trilogy, or we get I think if we got, you know what, I'll shelve this idea. I was going to say we get like a Darth Vader hallway scene from Rogue One, but with Darth Maul doing something crazy. Let's shelve that, because if that would happen, I think everybody would have loved The Last Jedi. But do you think The Last Jedi would have been more well received had we had a revelation like that about maybe Darth Maul being who DJ is referring to? And again, exact same movie. And Ron, I want you to answer in the chat, because I know how you feel about it. Exact same movie, but it's like this guy Maul, and then we're not going to see him in that movie or deal with him, but we know we're getting to Maul.
And because this would have happened, like, we are gonna forget about the Obi-Wan on Tatooine scene where he kills Maul.
Yeah, completely forget. We'll scratch.
Right.
Yeah, so
I
Darth
think
Maul, as far as we know, is Clone Wars only. Yes.
Yeah, I think that Maul is a character, believe it or not, that, you know, you might still be able to do something with. Like, I hold out hope because of Dathomir and the witches coming back, and like, bro, anything is possible. Like, where's the body? Like, show me the body, Obi-Wan. What did you do with this body,
Where's the
man? So, I don't know, but yeah, it needed to be something bigger than a Palpatine, I think, reveal. A new, like, it just, the Last Jedi to me felt so new that I was expecting the next film to just take it even further. Like, I think, you know, the backlash was there. I say go further, go further away from what people expect, because to me that's what Star Wars was.
Heidi?
Well, I'm kind of surprised that Snoke was killed off in Last Jedi. That was shocking to me. Um, although maybe if it could explain better why he was a puppet, especially I know he was a clone of Palpatine, but I would have liked for Snoke not have been to not have been a real person. I mean, I don't know who they would teamed up to defeat in Last Jedi, so maybe I'm not writing this correctly. But the point is, um, you know, I would have liked to have seen what DJ was leading to, that the First Order and the Rebellion were being played just like Palpatine played the Separatists and the New Republic in the prequel trilogy, and I thought that's where it was going. That all this time the villains had been the syndicates, and they've been playing these people to get them. They need a war to go on to make money. And I honestly thought that that's where this was all going, and for that to be revealed that this was Maul, or I guess her name was Talon, the female, the red female Twi'lek. I think that would have been great. I did not care for the Duel of Fate script at all. So I'm actually in that sense, I'm glad we got Rise of Skywalker. I had fun with Rise of Skywalker, but I would have definitely liked to have seen where the story would have gone with the syndicates. Maybe bring in Shizir or whomever. Um, I actually at one point thought maybe Snoke was going to turn out to be Leia, and Leia was the big bad villain of all the time, because that would have shocked everybody. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen it go in a completely different direction than what we got.
Prince Shizor. Mm-hmm. That would have
Yeah,
been.
I think we did a
Seems
podcast like
interesting.
7 years ago maybe, where it was yeah, she's always going to make his way in. I can't see Filoni leaving away. Dale, your thoughts on Maul in the TLJ?
I actually had a totally different theory when it was coming out, when TLJ was being made and everything. That I started hearing rumors of Plagueis or Sidious coming back. God, I got Plagueis on my mind again. How did I do that? So Sidious is coming back.
You just watched The Acolyte.
Yeah. No, I didn't just watch it. We were talking about it. But when I heard that Sidious was coming back, I was like, man, that'd be kind of cool if Palpatine came in between Rey and Kylo and just basically annihilated Snoke and said, I'm here to, do whatever I got to do to take you both in. And but it was too early for the end scene, so it would have ended up being an end scene thing that would have revealed Palpatine. So I don't know. I think Palpatine, and then I think of calling him Sidious, and then I get Plagueis in my head. That's how it works.
Just
All
go
things to
SheVP.
Plagueis.
But I don't really hate the idea of Maul being, but he would be really old, like Plague or like a Sidious, and Darth Talon would be the center of it, and I don't think Disney wanted to go with Darth Talon, to be honest. I think that was just too much sexy Twilight fantasy stuff, and yeah, I don't think.
Well, there was the interview. So I think the interview with James Cameron, he said, I think it was Charlie Rose. He said they wanted to make something retro. I don't like that. Every movie I work hard to make them completely different, with different planets, with different spaceships. Make it new. And he was like, make it new. And then he cracked open his Diet Coke. And so it's not, and I think this is the flaw of I think this is the flaw of Disney right now is they didn't want to touch the prequels. Obviously, they wanted only the original trilogy, and they were like, make what we know. And now we're back in this where they were like, may only make the sequels, and now people are like kind of like negative towards the sequels, and like only make the original trilogy era again, and we're kind of stuck in this vortex of sand on Tatooine because I think Disney is afraid to expand the Disney universe.
Yeah, we're stuck on Tatooine, and we're either stuck on Tatooine or we're stuck 1,000 years in the future or 1,000 years in the past. And everybody wants Bane. Everybody wants, the old KOTOR and all that stuff. It's not going to happen the way those guys wrote it. Those guys wrote a fantasy, and George didn't write a fantasy. He wrote real people and put them in the fantasy of the Force and lightsabers. These are, I mean, he did create Bane in a way, but they went a different direction in the EU, and there's more expectations there about the EU, and they're not going to do the EU. They're not going to adapt the EU. It's a totally separate thing. If you like the EU, let that be one story. If you like the Star Wars, that's another story. This isn't going the way you think.
Yeah,
Everybody knows
right
the quote. Everybody knows the quote.
You say what you want about the movie. It's one of the most popular quotes in the entire saga. This is not going to
honestly, we said The Last Jedi one time and broke chat for the last 10 minutes. They've been talking about Cancobite and how it was too long.
It's been 6 years too. That's why the Last Jedi. I'm not going to say my opinion of it because but I always say that it is the most overrated Star Wars movie and the most underrated Star Wars movie. It's like just calm down, man. Just calm down. It's a movie. It's fine. And I'm not and I don't say that saying that it can't be your personal favorite or your least favorite. I'm just saying, just relax. Just relax a little bit because it's good. Like you bring it up and you just get inundated with everything and depending on your tone and how you're talking about it, that triggers the answers that you're going to get. So I like to shy away from The Last Jedi, and it does not exist in my headcanon. I've scratched it out, and the only thing that exists to me is Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates script. Heidi, that's all. I haven't actually read that script. Or watch like the animated thing that somebody did on YouTube. I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know. It doesn't exist. And I've seen Trevorrow's Jurassic World trilogy, and I think Star Wars dodged a bullet. Scotty.
Well, I was going to tell you my favorite part about the script, but you don't want to hear it, apparently. I'm going to tell you.
Go for it. Yeah, no, I'm not against hearing about it. I haven't seeked it out.
This is crazy. I should say I love everything that people hate most of the time. So when I say that this is my favorite, that means everyone's going to hate it. But so General Hux in this movie hated Kylo Ren so much that he was actually researching the Force and trying to learn how to awaken the Force within himself. He was collecting Jedi artifacts, and in the film he commits the he unalives himself the way samurais do with their own swords as like the rebellion's coming in, but it's with Mace Windu's purple lightsaber.
No, what?
Yep.
And Heidi, you don't like the script?
It was I just wasn't into it. I mean, I know Rey was supposed to have a double-sided purple lightsaber. I think I think Kylo Ren made her blind or something, so she had to fight like Jason Sandula's dad. What's his name? To
Kanan?
fight blind or something. I think she
Kanan?
lost her foot. I don't know.
What? Okay, yeah, I don't even. That sounds cool.
We
Scotty
should
says
go.
sounds
We should
cool.
go
Let's-
over it.
we know we'll do that on another live stream one day because that is.
That'll
It's
take so
honestly, I
long.
just the thing is I saw people when it came out and they're like, we should have got this. And I'm like, I don't want to be that person because if I do love it, I'm like, oh man. But again, I saw the Jurassic World trilogy that Colin Trevorrow made. And every time I watch him, I was like, is he doing Star Wars for real, or are we being punked? Where's Ashton Kutcher for everybody old enough to remember? I was like, what's happening here? Because those movies, I love Jurassic Park. I love the original 3. I guilt watch those things all the time. But the Jurassic World ones, and I own all of them, by the way, own them, are not good movies. Especially like the first one, you can whatever. The second one, I saw it in the theater. I was like, what is happening right now? And then the third one, I think my wife walked out. Like I didn't see it in the theater. We watched it at home. I think she got up and left at some point during it. And I was like, but dinosaurs are coming. So I think we dodged a bullet because even if the script is phenomenal, the movie probably would have stunk.
We were supposed to
that-
get human hybrids at some point, right? Some human dinosaur hybrids are coming, I think.
Yeah, the movie, they went in such a weird direction. I am looking forward to the new one by Gareth Edwards. I am looking forward to the new one by Gareth Edwards. So
Like live action Super Mario Brothers. Best film ever created.
Best film ever. When the cartoon came out last year, I made Andrew Fantasia come over. He had never seen the original. My wife had never seen it. I'm like, you two are going to sit down and we're going to watch. And I have it on DVD. I put it in. And at the end of the movie, do you know what they both said? I really like that. And I was like, damn right you did. It's a phenomenon. De-evolution. All right. We just lost all subscribers on the channel. Let's also, okay, so let's go back to this part. Lucas, this is from the James Cameron's Story of Science Fiction. This is Lucas's quote. We kind of talked about this earlier. We'll go more into it. The next 3 Star Wars films, we're going to get into a microbiotic world, but there's this world of creatures that operate differently than we do. I call them the Wills, and the Wills are the ones who actually control the universe. They feed off the Force. And I when you read that, I think 2 things. 1, everybody would have hated it. 2, Rogue One, Guardians of the Wills. And I really like that aspect of it. And I hope we get more of that into it. But I'm not sure these movies, especially when you think of Clone Wars and the Mortis arc and where he was going with things, I'm not sure if these sequel movies, and Dale, maybe you can flesh out what I'm saying more based on notes, but I'm not sure people would have really responded to these movies very fondly, especially when if maybe we came after the original trilogy, maybe, but after the prequels, I just don't know if these are the movies people wanted. I think people want, I hate to say it, but I think people want The Force Awakens. I think they want The Force Awakens with answers. That's what I think people want. I think George Lucas knows that, and I think that's what he's saying in that other quote where they want to go retro. I think he understands that audiences aren't with him going forward. Even I think eventually, like the prequel kids now, like eventually the people will catch up to it. But I think in the moment they don't want to, and Disney is a corporation, and in the moment they don't want to do that, and they're going to stick with what works right now. Even if it's stale in 20 years, they're going to stick with what works in this moment right now.
But back to the where was it? You started on part of this where I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, I do that all the time.
So he's going to create the microbiotic world. And probably in the script, it wasn't really fleshed out very well. Yeah. And we all know how that went over. Just the suggestion of midichlorians went over in the prequels with some fans. So I think that was the mindset of who was helping him, Michael Arndt. And I think Kasdan was involved right after he left. Or I don't know. He called Kasdan and said they're not using my script, or they're not using my ideas. He didn't say they weren't using his scripts. They said they aren't using my ideas, and he was upset that they weren't using the midichlorians and the wills. And I think Mark Hamill got a hold of that information, or George talked to him on the phone, probably, because he talks to George all the time, and or at least he did. And that information got out on Twitter and blew up the whole world that they're not using his scripts.
Yep.
They threw him in the trash. So, but they did. They used them, at least for Force Awakens, as far as I can tell. I don't know if they totally gave up on. I mean, Kylo is a combination of two characters. He's a combination of Darth Talon and Leia's son. Essentially, I guess that's what I'm gathering from this article. And then Rey is Rey, with no explanation as to why she's so powerful, but she's as powerful as Kylo, and she's looking for Luke to start her training. She feels the Force awaken in her, and she wants to know what it is. And she's 19 like Luke is, but there's no explanation as to why she comes into the story. She's just looking for Luke. She's looking for Luke in all the wrong places. Oh, wait.
I wonder why. One thing I know from what I heard previously was that he kind of rushed his treatments for his sequels, I think it was because he thought he can get more money from Disney to sell to them.
He just wanted to have it in his vision.
Yeah.
And I think that his vision was the big deal was the midichlorians and the wills. And that was what they decided against using, because he walked out on them and left them with no choice but to do their own thing. I mean, they still used his treatments, but they didn't stick with the wills. If he would have stuck around and said, well, here's how it works, or whatever, then they would have had it. They would have had everything that he wanted in it. But instead, he's mad at Kathy for not using that. But the story is within his vision.
Yeah, the wills are included in a lot of like the Clone Wars stuff, and I think that's where it's at.
They're even putting the wills, the Guardians of the Wills are in Rogue One.
Yeah, and I think that George Lucas could have done something really cool. Like, you think about films like Avatar and how spiritual they are with their connection to their planet. Like, I think George could have taken us to another world within the world of Star Wars, but the technology, and I would especially love to see him be able to do it now with the technology that we have.
Well, that last episode with Yoda going to the planet and the core with the wellspring and all that stuff, that was kind of what I was imagining, that maybe Rey, that's why she felt this Force Awakens in her, and she went on some kind of a journey that she had to face her dark side before she even knew what the light side was. Or she basically grew up learning what the Jedi were. She was a slave to Unkar. She was basically Anakin in a nutshell until Luke's age. And I think there's actually kind of a little theory that I have that Unkar sold her parents out to Ochi and made them think that he was it's an idea I had anyway when I was theorizing about what was going to happen. It was that Ochi comes to Unkar, wants her parents. He introduces them, and they threaten him with the knife and say, "Where's the girl?" Because they know about the girl, the dagger that she finds, and then on Pisana, and they basically Ankar sold her parents out, making them think that he was a transport. They were going to get him off the planet. They were going to get him away from the bad guys, and he was the bad guy, and it was too late. It's kind of like the Empire showing up when on Bespin, when Han and Leia are already there and they think they're safe, and then Vader shows up in the lunchroom, the dining room.
And there actually is some Oshi connections in the Vader comic, I believe.
Right.
That Charles Soule did try to fit in there for us too, but I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Wasn't the Wills the original name for the Force?
Yeah, I think
it was.
It's like hand in hand. The will, the will of the Force, like the wills. You know what I'm saying? The wills are the will of the Force. The Force is the wills of the Force.
Now the wheels start turning. Yep.
Exactly.
It makes me wonder. Sorry, Heidi, go on.
I was just gonna say it's kind of something I was thinking about before. How you talk about the EU, and I feel like the Last Jedi novel, the first chapter at least, kind of gave like a little bit of a canon to the EU in the sense that there are different legends and different stories, and maybe even different universes of what happens to characters. Because at the beginning of the Last Jedi in the novel, Luke stays on Tatooine. Leia is executed. I guess C-3PO and R2-D2 are dismantled. They find the Death Star plans, and he's unhappily married to the woman who called him Worm.
So I think in The Last Jedi, a couple of things could fix, like the Canto Bight scenes. I think those could have been broken up with a little bit of editing, and they would have been more acceptable. Luke throwing the saber over his shoulder could have been him just tossing it to the side like he did in front of Sidious, saying, I will not train you, just like he said, I will not fight you. That would have been way more acceptable to the fans. I think that's probably what set people off at the beginning of the movie. Just basically ruined the whole show for, several fans that, didn't like that.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I think what happened was we were all excited. Oh my gosh, she just handed him this. She just handed him. I'm sorry. She just handed him the saber. What's gonna happen now? And then all he does is just, we waited 2 years to see what he was gonna say to her. Like, oh my God, how'd you get my father's saber? Blah blah blah. And all he does is just look at it, and throw it over his shoulder. So I think the expectation was kind of like. We all had this major scene in our head with like, oh my God, you're my niece, you're my daughter, whatever. Yeah, all he does is look at it and just throws it over his shoulder. So I think it's another thing about expectation and waiting 2 years for how the scene was going to play out, and it was a little disappointing.
Yep, it was, and I understand, and I agree with that. So it's not like I'm saying that you're wrong to not like The Last Jedi. But that's the wrong reason to not like The Last Jedi.
But I will say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, just basing it on one scene. Come on.
No, I was just gonna say, because we waited 2 years for that.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could have done that would have satisfied the audience.
I like to think that there is a creative out there that can write just amazing story, and we've even heard some of, like, even tonight we hear better story than what we got in a lot of the stuff. So it's just like it just takes a lot of time and a lot of care. And I feel like Disney is not the company to care too much about time when it comes to like truly fleshing out a story. Like they really didn't know what they were doing going even into episode 9. So I hope they take as long as necessary for whatever the next 3 connected anything is. You know what I mean?
Well,
Which drives me nuts because they had Lucas's treatments for all 3 movies. Abrams comes in, he scraps half of it, keeps part of it, but then like at least be like, okay, fine, do what you want, but this is where we're ending. At least have at least know where it's going, right? Otherwise, that was the problem. Is you don't have to be completely like not everything has to be planned out, but you got to know your final destination when you're doing those movies. That was the problem with the sequels is they didn't know where they were going. They were making up as it went along, and it feels like Abrams did what he wanted to do. Rian Johnson probably saw Lucas's stuff, was like, he wanted to subvert expectations, bring in Lucas's ideas as well, do both of those. Both of them ended up falling flat because the third movie comes and it's like, you know what? Kylo Ren's a dyad with Rey, and I mean they brought in Babu Frick, but they were just like he, you could almost, it 100% feels like those two were oil and water together. Abrams and Johnson were oil and water, and Abrams wanted to just do a sequel to the movie that he made, not the movie that will happen between them. But I don't know if you guys heard this. Kylo Ren himself, Adam Driver's in Megalopolis with what's his face's new movie.
Yep.
And he just did an interview and he said it was nice to do a movie because it's basically an independent film. I think it was Coppola put all of his own money into it. And it was nice. We just did whatever we wanted. We didn't have a lot of producers show up and like tap on the shoulder and make decisions like they did in the sequels a lot of times. So that was I think very telling. I think we like to put it all on Johnson, on Abrams, and even on Kathleen Kennedy, but I think there are puppet masters above all of them that for better that I think hurt the trilogy more than helped it. I'll say that.
No, not really. There's one thing that I think that people turn into that, and it's the fact that Lucasfilm has always had secrecy. They've always been high. Their NDAs, their scripts that you can't copy, all that stuff is why they say there's no plan. Because apparently if there was no plan and they were using George's scripts to begin with, they would have had something about Maul in there. They would have had something about Darth Talon in there. They would have had somebody that was not, I mean, Snoke is not Palpatine, but Palpatine created Snoke. So I think there was a plan to bring Palpatine back the whole time. They just didn't want to tell anybody about it, and they kept that secret. It's like Grogu. When Grogu shows up on the screen, nobody knew about that.
That was a great surprise.
Nobody knew about Vader, I am your father. Nobody knew about that. That's what they were looking for, and that's what they tried to do. And it's fine because it worked, but it backfired. It pissed a lot of the fans off.
A couple of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people are excited at Celebration in Chicago, but I know Rian Johnson did something completely than J.J. Abrams did. But knowing that Palpatine ended up being the big bad guy, and instead of him appearing in Fortnite, was that the game? You're the expert. He should have. He should have.
Sky's gonna be playing it soon.
He should have appeared like a glimpse of him, maybe like in an after scene or something, or before scene or whatever, instead of Room Boy or whatever. Maybe had Palpatine like giggle or something at the end of the movie to let you know he's coming back. I think that would have been more of a big shocker to everybody.
Yeah, that would have been. Well, and that's, well, yeah.
That's pretty much everybody's
Yeah,
response to the Last Jedi, and that's what I love. They're like, yeah, no, yeah,
Right.
no,
Ryan
yeah.
Ryan did a lot of things on purpose because he wanted to create that misdirection. He knew what was going on. He wanted you to think that Rey was going to be a Kenobi. He wanted you to think that Rey was going to be Luke or Han and Leia's lost daughter that somehow got separated from him, or just. But we never heard any of that kind of thing, and it just didn't. It made people think that, but it didn't make any sense for people to think that. But the misdirection is what he was looking for. He was looking to set people on their toes about Luke, but I don't think he was trying to really piss people off about Luke.
I think he thought Luke had more of a redemption at the end of the movie than I think comes through in what we get. I just think for a lot of people, I think people didn't buy into it. I think some people did, obviously, but I think a lot of people didn't buy into his redemption at the end, and that's why it's a tough pill for people to swallow.
By the time Luke's redemption rolls around, they didn't care because they were so upset about Luke tossing the saber over his shoulder. That's the problem.
Heidi nailed it, though. You waited 2 years to see what was going to happen with that. Everybody did theory videos online, and what happens? So the thing is, what annoyed me in the theater the most about that moment was I didn't really care, like, because Brock kind of mentioned that a few years ago that what was going to happen with Luke, but it was that they did like a Looney Tunes gag out of it where the music swells up, cuts, and then he tosses it like Bugs Bunny and then stomps away. And it's like, what are you doing? And then like after that, you have to watch him catch a big Muppet fish and all these things. It's like, what is happening right now? I want to watch a movie. And I know I know Yoda was the same thing, but it's just they're very different, my biggest thing with Luke, I think, though, is and I didn't have a problem with him in it. I thought what I thought, but it's because there's that 20-year gap, 30-year gap between the movies where you don't see, we talked about this all the time, where we don't see his progression from Return of the Jedi to Last Jedi. It's like, what happened? And the movie kind of gives you a little bit, but there had to have been more. And I know Scotty's, I think he's just put up a what's it called? A poll, not a poll. What did they do for the Acolyte? A petition to get a Sebastian Stan series going. He just put that up. You can go to Scotty Hawkish at YouTube, hit subscribe, and that counts you in the petition for it. But if we got something to flesh out that time period, I don't know if it'll ultimately help the people who can't stand that movie right now, but I think it would be beneficial. Also, it would give us more Star Wars content.
Well, yeah, my biggest gripe about The Last Jedi is they changed Phasma's death scene. I thought the original one that was cut was a lot more interesting.
What was that?
Phasma's death scene.
No, what was the cut one?
It's the Finn tells everybody how she betrayed them, how she gave up so easily, and they threw her in the garbage.
Right.
So then she turned around and killed all the guards. I thought that was more interesting. I think it gave her character, because her character turned out to be pretty lame if you think about it. She was supposed to be this awesome female evil badass. They throw her in the garbage in the first movie. In the second movie, she just goes down after fighting Finn. But I like she just quickly takes out a laser gun and just starts shooting everybody to save her own neck. And I wish they had kept that instead.
She was lame. I think it was funny when Force Awakens came out and everybody gravitated to TR-8R, who they ended up giving like another name to, but everybody like the traitor guy who was like traitor, and he fought Finn, and everybody gravitated to that guy. And Phasma, people were like, whatever. I was kind of okay with Phasma because Star Wars is all about cool looking characters who don't have to do anything and have just like they just look cool. That's what Star Wars toys are all about. But again, like you bring her back for one little scene, just to have a little kind of okay fight moment and then kill her off was like, all right. It would have been cool if she survived to the third movie and there was a big confrontation between her and Finn. Like that would have been nice to see. But I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been. Who knows?
And to your point, James, you're shocked that the guy who wrote Lost didn't have a clear ending to the movie.
True story about Lost. I never saw an episode in my life. Andrew Fantasia always talked about it. I didn't talk to him that often back then, but I watched the series finale of Lost when it aired because I'm like, everybody's going to talk about this. I got to watch it. And Rob Darth Ward McDonald loved Lost to death, and he was clueless in that finale. And I remember being like, but I thought it was about. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, I thought it was about this. He goes, oh, is that what it was about? And I was like, I don't know. And apparently it was. And then I almost watched the first episode once, and I said, I'm good. So yeah, to your point, I don't care about Lost. He wrote the Ray movie, which is in shambles also. So maybe there's something to it.
Jeez. I would love to see them put. Oh, I guess I should say I would have loved to have seen them put a legitimate effort and amount of money and finances into closing in the filler of the gap between how Luke got from point A to point B in the sequels. Call it a retcon or just telling us how this man got to this point, because I feel like he is Luke Skywalker. He's the answer to most of everybody's childhood and why we got into Star Wars. Like, people didn't like what you did with him. You should be doing a lot more to try to fix some of that. You know what I mean? There's 30 years you can do stuff in there.
Yeah, a long time.
Just pick a time and start.
I don't think they will. I think they're afraid to touch Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
now.
Agreed.
Now here's the interesting thing. When I'm 52. I was there for the originals. And no kids wanted to be Luke Skywalker. They all wanted to be Han Solo.
Damn right. That's where I was too. Han was my guy. Han was my favorite Star Wars character until Anakin. Not Phantom Menace Anakin.
And like I said, you go back and watch Return of the Jedi, and that opening scene with Luke, I feel like it's just him showing off. So look what I can do. I can do flips. I can do this.
And I think because a lot of the argument, I remember when The Last Jedi came out, the argument was, well, that's more interesting is to see a hurt Luke, like a Luke who's like, however you describe he was. I'm like, yeah. I see. My problem is, and I've said this before, is Brock called that a year before the movie came out. He was like, what if Luke is crazy hermit and he's like Yoda Empire and he does crazy things and doesn't want to help her? And I was like, oh, man. And when we saw the trailer at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, I was literally like, we did our recording after, which was our 600th video on the channel, I believe. We did our recording after. And then when we hit stop, I go, Brock, I feel like they're heading in the direction that you talked about like 2 months ago or whatever it was. And then we were sitting in the theater and it's all happening. I'm like, son of a freaking gun, man. Like Brock ruined the movie because I was like, so for me, excuse me, for me, that Luke felt like lazy. I was like, this is the easy way out because Brock called this 2 months ago. I honestly think, and this goes for every requel I've seen. What if the hero from the original film wasn't jaded, wasn't miserable, and embraced who they were, and that is actually their flaw? Is that how about that? How about isn't it maybe it's harder to write someone like Luke Skywalker being flawless and trying to find what their flaw is and figure it out? And I think everybody gave Zack Snyder hell for saying he finds Batman more interesting when he has no choice but to kill the bad guy, basically. Like, you put him in a scenario where there's no real chance for him to get. That is, I don't know why people are getting mad at Zack Snyder for that. I mean, you can hate his movies all you want, whatever. But that's I'm like, yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Because you can take, Superman can't be jaded like Luke Skywalker was. So you got to put him in a situation. I think the ending of Man of Steel is controversial, but he had no choice but to snap Zod's neck. You put him in a scenario where it's like, what are you going to do? And even though he's not human, you got to humanize these characters. I think it's just, Anyway, this is a side Akbar because Brock ruined the damn Last Jedi for me by nailing that like a year in advance. You can watch it's on the YouTube channel somewhere. You'd have to go through. I don't know how many. I don't know what podcast it was, but it was early on. It was video podcast for sure. I want to say, and he literally was like, "What if Luke is crazy and he doesn't even want?" I think he even says he doesn't want the lightsaber or something. And I'm like, and then we watched the trailer, and I was like, "Brock, I hate your guts. Get out of my face."
Yeah, I think the Luke you said you just wanted happened. We just didn't see it.
No, and that's to Scotty's point is let's see it. Let's see it.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm like, show me Mandalorian season 2 finale Luke. How we get from that to Last Jedi. That is a story I would love to see that story. Show me it. Because that's doing exactly what Zack Snyder said. You're going to put him in a scenario that's going to be like da-da-da, and he's not going to like what he had to do. And because he did that, now he doesn't trust Ben Solo. He doesn't trust himself. He doesn't trust da-da-da-da-da. And you can say, oh, but it's Return of the Jedi, but it's not because half the fans didn't feel that, right? So I think to Scotty's point, I just think like they're throwing. If they would think about this. If they would do an 8-episode half-hour shows, 8-episode half-hour show of Luke Skywalker from Mando season 2 to sometime with Ben Solo, we would just eat the crap out of that thing and not complain for a second until we can like, oh, it's too AI and his voice sounds like his. But we would eat it up. We would eat it up.
We've seen people eat up animation already that isn't Luke Skywalker with visions and tales. Like, just do anything. Find someone in the writer's room that wants to fix what people hate. There are so many people within that company, supposedly, who are in agreement with the side of the fandom that are like, what the hell is going on in the writer's room? What direction are you headed in? So you have so many different mediums to tell these stories in. They were doing it with the rise of Kylo Ren, with, these comics. But just do more of it. That's what I say. If you're going to do sequel stuff, it doesn't have to be mainstream movies. It can be animated. It can be CGI.
And I know they're nervous about going back to, let me see, streaming numbers. I know they're nervous about doing like original, like older characters because of how poorly Solo fared at the box office. But I believe I can't find it because I'm terrible at Google. But I think Kenobi drew pretty well. The numbers were pretty good. Now you didn't recast Kenobi, and I know that, and I think they're afraid of recasting because of the Solo movie. But if it's a Disney Plus show, and I think honestly, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but if you get Sebastian Stan, or even just the guy that stood in as Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, well, like you just get. I think fans have accepted him also. I think you do that.
Yeah.
You throw in the little PR of Mark Hamill being like, yeah, I'm passing the torch on to this guy. And have Mark Hamill on set for the first day of shooting or whatever for goodwill to fans to be like, oh, look, I think that's why he's in Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. It was just for fans. You do that. I think the numbers are through the roof. We all love it. And it's like, and you don't tell us he's going to that dark place by the end of it because that'll just piss people off. But if you get him there organically, I think people would be on board for it. If you have a really conflicted Luke who's still your hero at the end of it, but is very conflicted with a lot of things, I don't know how that's not a hit. I just don't know how.
What you could do is like have it start out with Luke on Octo, and he's up there right before Rey arrives, and he's thinking back to how he gets to that moment, and then how it ends, and then the Millennium Falcon lands, and then the series ends. And then if you have him there thinking back, and even if it's not him, if it's Sebastian Stan or it's the other actor, I think people might be willing to accept that more.
Yeah.
And it just ends with him seeing the Millennium Falcon flying towards him.
But instead, they would rather just not have Luke Skywalker in the movies or in anything anymore. I don't think we're getting Luke again. I think what we saw him in Book of Boba Fett was the end of Luke on, books and comics, whatever. But I think in live action TV or movies, I think that's the end of Luke Skywalker.
And I'm sorry, Dale. I know we went off, and I feel bad.
Yeah,
You're
sorry.
typing. You're supposed to be talking live.
Dale,
But
just talk. Just interrupt. It's
I'm
harder
sorry.
because we can't see your face. It's harder. But and if you have anything to say, just be like, "Stop it! I'm talking."
Right. No, I'm fine. We can talk about whatever we want. I covered whatever well, there is some other things about the sequels and stuff, but there's a lot of things that I have opinions about. The fans are just like, this is wrong. And there's great examples of that. But I think Kathleen held to her promise. She promised George that she would keep things within his vision, and not verbatim, she has. She basically used his treatments to create the sequels. She made sure they were used. They didn't keep everything that he wanted in there. The Wills and the midichlorians was the big thing for him. I don't think he was upset about Maul and Darth Talon being the big bad. I think, other than Snoke just being a puppet, I think Snoke and Sidious actually makes more sense than Maul does, because he came back in the EU. He came back as dozens of clones in the EU, and Luke fought all of them, and like a superhero, destroyed him with his own Force Storm. And then my perspective on Timothy Zahn is he basically put himself in the character's shoes and then wrote the story the way he would want his life to go if he was them. And he married Luke married Mara Jade, and she's a super hot model, and that's one of the things that pissed George off. He was just like, she looks like she stepped out of GQ magazine photo shoot just now, you know.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things that George does that is realistic, but he just stuck the characters in a fantasy world, and it's not all about fantasy. It's all about teaching kids real life lessons, and you know, it's more than just a fantasy.
Yeah, I think it definitely was more than fantasy, but I think he was about to lean into the scientific aspects of it a little too much for a lot of fans, I think, to have swallowed. But again, you don't know how deep he would have got into that. Like, I mean, like, just mentioning midichlorians pissed people off. So who knows what would have happened if he went into anything else that he was suggesting he would do in these sequels. Look, like I said, if you want to bring Maul back, bring him back. I will buy the merch up. I will buy a T-shirt. I will buy the DVD box set. I will resubscribe to Disney. I have Disney Plus again, but I'll get the full 4K. I don't have a 4K TV, but I'll get the 4K version just to watch some Darth Maul action returning to the galaxy far, far away.
We need a wrinkled old Maul, just like we got a wrinkled old Palpatine.
100%.
I just I tweeted this. I found I think it was, I don't remember if it was Mayor OSHA action figure and a Saw action figure at Walmart last night. So it's not that they're making those toys; it's that we're not getting inundated with commercials like we did with the '80s, and I think that's not politically correct anymore because it was considered advertising to children too much. So you were saying how you didn't think we were excited about Star Wars anymore because we weren't getting the toys, and it's not that we're not getting the toys; we're just not getting the commercials for them.
Yeah, why don't they sell kids toys anymore? Kids don't ask for toys because they don't have the commercials.
You know why?
Parents.
Tell us.
Right here.
Fair enough.
That's why.
I'll tell you what. My daughters too.
My
we
kids
don't let her
are
watch
iPad
TV.
kids, bro.
my daughter hasn't. We don't let her watch TV or touch phones or the iPad, and she's obsessed with toys. But I'll tell you this: the amount of money we spent on toys probably could have bought an iPad for a lot, a lot cheaper.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
They want phones and iPads and game consoles and new games, and they don't play with toys. And if you don't let them play with the iPads and
Yep. Absolutely. I think it's, but you know what? I do say, I think it was on my video on Friday, fixing Star Wars. I desperately miss the tie-in crap, the tie-in materials. We talked about it last week with the Force, or 2 weeks ago with the Force Awakens books that came out. We don't get any of that anymore. There's nothing. Remember Force Friday? Like they did Force Friday for like 3 or 4 years
I made
in a row.
videos on my
was
channel about Force Friday.
and everybody's like, "It's Force Friday, we gotta go!" And they would be on ABC News, being like, "Look, I got the new Bodhi Rook action figure," and you'd be like, "Oh, that's cool! I can't wait to see this Star Wars movie that's coming out in a couple months." And then they were just like, "Done. There's no more Force Friday. There's no excitement anymore." Like James, I bought the Aftermath. Yeah,
I bought this on Force Friday. This is Rey's staff. Why did it come with a purple lightsaber? Chat, tell me. Why did this come with
you did your video. Didn't your video blow up on that?
I think of course it didn't blow up.
Oh, I thought it did. Because I remember seeing that being like, what? Is he onto something here?
Yeah, so that was labeled Rey's staff and it came with a purple saber. I don't want to talk about Force Friday ever again.
I miss it, man. Bring it back, Disney. My kid's tablet broke and I won't let her have another. All she ever wanted. She still doesn't play with her toys, though. Yeah, that's the thing. Like I've heard that from a lot of people that kids don't play with toys. And like I said, right now, until my daughter sees a tablet or phone, she's seen our phones, but she doesn't. We don't let her play with it. Until then, like she's all in on toys. She has a good time with her toys, and I'm hoping I bought her some Star Wars stuffed toys that you squeak them, and it's like Rey being like, don't hold my hand, and she loves those. But yeah, I don't know. I miss tie-in stuff. I miss Force Friday. Just the excitement of new crap coming out. Like I was going to say this, the Aftermath book, I was like, oh, Force Friday, this is a big deal. It's coming out Force Friday. We got to do it. They don't do anything. There's no tie-ins to anything. Like, I think I said this too, but imagine if the Acolyte had a couple tie-in books, about, even if it was about the Stranger. You didn't know that it was Chimera because he's in a mask, and they just give you a story on the Stranger hunting for a Sith relic or some crap.
How about
ate that up?
Anything. The road to anything.
I did my video. So I'm doing the series on the channel called The Road to the Skeleton Crew. Didn't think anything of it. I'm like, I missed that. And Fantasia sends me a text, being like, keep it up. If they're not going to do it, you have to. It's like, I missed it, man. The Road to the Force Awakens, The Road to the Last Jedi, The Road. They were doing it. It was so much fun. You're like, this is like, we all are excited for Star Wars. They made $1 billion. Maybe 4 out of 5 movies made $1 billion. We're all in on Star Wars. Keep us there. Keep us there. The Road to the Acolyte, The Road to Skeleton Crew, The Road to Ahsoka season 2, The Road to, they just bring it. And they're afraid of spilling the beans on things, but they don't have to. They just tell us little stupid stories about, like Saul. They could have said anything they wanted about Saul. Like a book about Saul, Jecki, and Yord could have been about anything they wanted because nothing mattered before the Acolyte. They could have been anything in their however years of existence they were in this timeline. And we didn't get any of that. And now the show's dead, and we're probably never going to get any of it.
Right.
Yep. Would you guys have read any of those? I mean, I wouldn't have read the books, let's be real. But I would have been excited about them.
I would have read a book about Chimera or whoever that would have been leading up to that show. For sure. Maybe you hint at more connections of Plagueis in there or something. But
Scotty has to go, and I have to go walk my dog.
Okay.
Yeah, we can wrap this up. Actually, I think my dog's crying over. All right, we'll wrap it up. Heidi, are you going to write a Chimera fanfic?
No.
Have you ever written fanfic? Are you a big fanfic writer?
No.
But you are a writer.
I mean, if you be in my spare time, I've written a bunch of books, and yes, if you want,
Yes.
I'm not a professional
I'm,
writer.
I'm trying to. I'm gonna plug them right now. Do you have them with you?
Yeah.
She's not interested in rewriting any Star Wars. Okay, don't ask
No,
again.
she's not going to write Star Wars, but she has her own original books. And if you
Yes.
know anything about Star Wars, Freddie Prinze Jr. said on a podcast they don't like the fan fiction over there. They want to see original ideas. Heidi, plug your book.
Well, you can go under the Ghost of Windworth Manor, under my pen name, Ann Drayton, or on Amazon, or the same thing, His Enchanted Swan. That's under my name. It's basically it's a modern day retelling of Swan Lake. So if you're into Raylo or Oshimir, I'm sure you'll love my stories. I think after last week, Scotty should read them as an education because I think Des and I broke them last week.
That was one time. I'm never gonna live it down. I'm never gonna live that down. It's on the internet forever, James.
Forever. You Heidi's like, I think we broke Scotty. I'm like, subscribe to his channel. And just play a playlist. And just when you go to sleep and you go to work, just hit one of his playlists and just let it play so he gets the hours streamed. Like Scotty, why don't you put in the chat where you're going right now so everybody can follow you over there? Like put the
I'm
link
actually
in
gonna be on. I'm gonna be on my channel. You guys should be searching on YouTube. It's at Scotty Hawk ish. So if you put the @ symbol in YouTube, it'll actually look up people's handles, and I'll just drop it in there for you. Leaving here, going to play Fortnite with a bunch of guys older than me, so that's always fun. My reaction time's been rough.
I spell your name wrong in the chat.
Into the clicking heads, but yeah,
I handle wrong. Good delete.
Nice, good job. Yeah. Well, and if you didn't realize, I actually did almost leak James' DMs accidentally, so that might actually happen one of these days. It's pretty controversial Star Wars takes.
It's
I've
very
been holding on to those receipts forever, so
yeah.
no, but I really am a weirdo. I like a lot of the content people don't like. It's for me, it's just let creators create, release the air cut. Toys spoil more movies than leakers. Get off my back.
100%.
Come subscribe. We get controversial sometimes. And I play GTA, which is fun.
Yeah. And Dale, Jedi Skywalker Dale, your YouTube channel.
I put it in the chat.
You put in the chat at Dale E Skywalker. See anything else you want to add there, Dale? Anything about the sequels? About anything before you walk your dog?
I'd just say go check out that document on that's all that's on my page, unless there's like a few recommended channels and some playlists, and at the top of the page there's that link to that document. Go read it and see what you think. See if it changes your mind at all, because it kind of changed my mind. I was like Ron. I was like, man, that sucked. Raise a Mary Sue. And then I started doing some research, and I started seeing some of the parallels between Rey and Anakin and Rey and Luke, and I was like, yeah, it's totally in line. If Rey's a Mary Sue, Luke's a Mary Sue.
Scotty's with you on that one.
Get him.
It's a Gary Stew.
And we're all canceled.
I watched something the other day and I was like, oh, this character is what you would call him. What the heck did I watch? Anyway, it was a character. I was like, oh, that's a Mary Sue. And it was I can't remember what it was. What the hell was it? Anyway, I watched something. I was like, I don't think of that phrase often, but it was a dude character. And
yeah, it's Gary Stew.
Yeah. It was Gary Stew.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to make some Gary Stew tomorrow. I don't know what that means. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. This was a blast. The George Lucas sequels, would they have been better? Would they have been worse? We'll never know. Disney released the air cut. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks, guys, for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. Flying casual. Great time. Chat, you guys rocked as usual. We'll see you next time on the Rebel Scum. May the force of others be with you.
Always.
scumbags. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.